Genesis.
Hey, music fans. Welcome back to our Genesis series. This is part 2, where we're going to be reviewing Genesis's second album, released in 1970, and this album is called Trespass, featuring Peter Gabriel once again, as well as Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks, but this time, and Anthony Phillips from the last album. This time we have a new drummer. Let me just a moment and I'll look up his name, because I forget. This is Trespass drummer.
John Mayhew.
John Mayhew. Thank you. Sorry.
He's the Wikipedia page up.
He only drums on this one album. So, but yeah, I'm excited to get to dive into this. Jacob, before I say anything, I'd like to know your kind of brief thoughts on this album, because I definitely have some thoughts on this album.
So, from the last time, I was kind of mixed on From Genesis to Revelation. I admired it more than I liked it. It kind of got samey after a while, even though there was some interesting stuff on it. It's more of a psychedelic rock album, more so than what Genesis would become, especially in the 70s. This album, you really start to see, I think, what Genesis would be known for in the 70s. This is more of a prog rock feel to it. And I'm going to say this is a much better album than the debut. It's only 6 songs, which really surprised me, but there are some lengthy extended songs on here, even with 6 songs. The album is 44 minutes long. So you'd still get an album's worth of music. It's just the songs are extended than on a normal album. I will say this is a lot better. It's not a great album by any means, but I actually do really like this one, and I'm excited to talk about, especially my favorite songs on this album.
Yes. That's kind of going to be a theme on these albums, is not a lot of songs, but having longer songs. It's kind of going to happen a lot on these Genesis albums. This is such a big step up from the debut album. Oh my goodness. It's a completely different sound, and this really fits them so much better. You can kind of hear a little bit of influence from the first album, but like they're going in a completely different direction with this album, and it fits them just so much better. I like this sound. Now we haven't quite gotten to like Genesis's classic period yet, when Steve Hackett and Phil Collins joined the band. It's going to be the next album, but still, this is most definitely not just a step in the right direction. This is like a giant leap in the right direction. So, glad to be reviewing this. We are going to start off with the first song on this album, and it is called Looking for Someone.
All right. So far with Genesis, we're 2 for 2 on album openers. When the Sour Turns to Sweet was actually my favorite song from the last album. And I thought this was a really cool way to open the album to show, I guess, what's going to be the signature style of this era of Genesis. It has more of a rock vibe to it compared to the last album, which was more poppy. There's a little bit of R&B, soul influence, especially in Peter Gabriel's vocals. Looking for someone. There's a great build on the song vocally. Some great instrumental solos on the song, especially the flute solo that Peter Gabriel does on the track. And I thought this was one of the best songs on the album. It was a great way to kick off the album, and it had potential to be a great album. I'll get to my issues in a bit, but I do really like this one.
This is epic. As you mentioned earlier, Peter Gabriel does play the flute, which I think is very interesting. He does that a lot on the Genesis albums. He sings, and then when he gets to the instrumental section, he'll play the flute. Tony Banks, one of the great keyboard players. Lots of great keyboard on here. Just like John Paul Jones, he uses the mellotron. So you're going to hear that instrument a lot on the Genesis albums as well. I love the "And Looking for Someone." That's really good. Mayhew is only on one album, but his drumming on this song is very good. I think it's a very good way to open the album and definitely a good way to reintroduce yourself for people who didn't buy Genesis to Revelation, which was probably a lot of people. This album was most likely a lot of people's introduction to Genesis, and so it's a much better introduction to the band than When the Sour Turns to Sweet. Oh, now we're going to get into White Mountain.
Hmm. This one was really good too. This one has more of a folksy influence to it. There's a good guitar intro. Even the way Peter Gabriel sings this song, I felt like I had some Stairway to Heaven vibes when listening to this song. Don't think it's as good as Stairway to Heaven, but as far as Genesis standards go, I think it's a really good song. Again, there's some really good instrumentation on this track. Um, I don't have much to say about this one. I think it's a really cool song. Do I love it? No, but I really like it.
I think this song is really epic. It's one of my favorites on this album. I like how it kind of starts off slower with the guitar, and then it builds up to that section that gets faster in the middle. Almost sounds kind of like video game music at parts. Which apparently video game composers were really big into progressive rock, and that's kind of where they got their inspiration. So I can definitely see that. I can see Mega Man fighting like a big robotic dragon to this song. Some of this song's instrumental sections.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song is amazing, and it's another one of my favorites on the album.
But yeah, I think the other thing I want to mention, I like the storytelling in this song too.
That is one of the best things about early Genesis is that the storytelling is amazing. Um, it's some of the lyrics are very British. As that you'll see that's another theme in Genesis's music is the Britishness of it. So this is another great song. We're gonna go to our third song, which is called "Visions of Angels."
I really like this one. This one, I love the use of piano on this track. It's a really good ballad from the band. There's some harmonies on this track that I think are really good. Uh, Very beautiful. Has a pretty good haunting finish at the end with some of the. I was gonna say orchestration, but it's probably the mellotron because you mentioned that moments ago. Uh, this one is a really good early ballad from Genesis. I think the more I listen to these albums, the more I start to appreciate Peter Gabriel as a vocalist because he knocks it out of the park on this album. I still think Phil Collins is the better singer, but Peter Gabriel can definitely hold his own when headlining this band, and I'm really starting to like his era, especially with this song and this album.
Good because it only goes up from here. You were gonna love the next album if you like this. Yeah, this song I think is very good. I like the piano at the beginning. It's a more of a ballad, kind of a longer ballad. I will say that this does rank kind of near the bottom on this album for me. Not the very bottom, I don't think. Or yeah, no, not the very bottom, but there are other songs that I like better. But all six songs on this album are very good. I still like the song, but I just feel like there's other better songs on here. But it's not one of those ones that's like, oh, it's Visions of Angels, skip. No, it's still a very good song. There's not a lot of songs on here, and they're all great. So making a ranking is kind of difficult.
Mhm.
Now we're going to go to track number 4, Stagnation.
All right, so this is where my problems with the album start to lie. So there were two songs on this album, especially back to back, that two ballads that really started to feel very samey. And I feel like of the two, this is the worst offender. This is one of the longest songs on the album at 9 minutes. And to be honest, I cannot tell you anything about this song. It is easily the most boring track on the album. Uh, Honestly, I think the first time I heard the album, I think I nearly fell asleep listening to it. It's not as dull as T for One on the Presence album, which we recently covered on the Sound Lab channel, Led Zeppelin, but I still thought this song was a snoozer, and it's easily my least favorite song on the album.
Oh, I like this song. It's not one of my like top favorite Genesis songs, but like it's got this great ballad feel to it. I just feel like there's some very good musicianship on this particular song. It does rank towards the top. It's not my favorite song on this album, but I do really like this song. Like every time I listen to it, I just enjoy the musicianship. And now we are going to get to track number 5, Dusk.
So, yeah, to me, Stagnation and Dusk are my two least favorite songs on the album. But I like Dusk a little more. I think it's a little bit more interesting than Stagnation. I do like some of the backing vocals on this song. I think what also helps is it's shorter than Stagnation, so it doesn't feel like a snooze compared to the other songs. It's shorter. But I think of the six songs on this album, Dusk and Stagnation are the weak links to it. Otherwise, a pretty solid album.
So this is my least favorite song on the album, Dusk. All of the other songs are really good. I like the song, but I just feel it's a little bit weaker than all of the other material on the album. And yeah, like you were mentioning, having several ballads back to back is kind of an odd choice. It is definitely setting you up for something though with the next song,
I'll,
but
I'll tell you what.
I
I'm sorry. I'll tell you what's funny. I listened to this album for the first time on the YouTube, and on the Genesis YouTube channel, the track listing is off. They have Dusk as the album closer.
what?
Yeah, they have the knife before Dusk, which is not a good choice because Dusk is not a good way to close out this album.
Why would they do that?
I have no idea. The track listing is correct on Spotify though.
That's odd. I have to check into that. Okay, but now this is what I want to spend the most time on is this last song because it's amazing, and that is the knife.
This is the one I was most excited to talk about because this song is awesome. The song is about 9 minutes long, and yet I honestly don't feel the length of this song because there's so many great things on it. I love the organ. It opens the song. I haven't mentioned John Mayhew yet as a drummer because his drumming's okay. He's no Phil Collins or anything, but he really rocked the house on this track. You really get to show. He really shows he's a capable drummer on this song, and a part of me wished that if Phil Collins was on this track, this song would have been even better than it already is. But
Just a little quick pause.
uh,
Listen to the live version on the album Genesis Live. It's got Phil Collins on it drumming,
oh, cool!
and I like it even better than the studio version.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Phil Collins
Uh,
and Steve Hackett bring their touch to the song, and it sounds more like a classic era Genesis song.
but uh, but yeah, the song is still amazing. I love actually the cheeky lyrics of this song because um, it's it starts off as like a protest song, but it's actually more of a parody of a protest song when you dive deep into it. Uh, it's kind of fascinating. I think people might take it the wrong way because they think it's actually something that's not really. I think it's supposed to be tongue in cheek, but I thought it was a very, very memorable song because of that. Uh, his vocal delivery and vocal timing on the song, the fast paced lyrics are awesome. The slower part where like it just builds and there's this I think background of like protests going on in the background, and I think Peter Gabriel is saying, "I don't want you, freedom, freedom," and then it builds again, and then it picks up again, and has a really good finish at the end. Even with it being 9 minutes, I'm like, because the instruments on this album are really cool. The organ, there's some cool keyboard on it. The drumming's really cool. And Peter Gabriel does a great job singing on this track. This is easily the best song on this album.
Oh yeah. For me, I love long songs, but here's the thing: if it's a long song, it has to merit its length.
Mm.
I say I love long songs, but I love it when the long songs merit their length. If it's a long song and it's not going anywhere, a T for one. Then I don't like that. But songs like this, where it's a long song but you don't feel the length of it, I love that just because it gives you more time to soak in the epicness of it. I love how it starts out with that bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum. And then yeah, you're talking about the drumming. The drumming is really good on this. Oh, really cool. And I love the part that goes like stand up and fight. And then there's this part where like there's like this weird like distortion on his voice. It almost makes him sound like a robot or something. He's like, "Some of you are going to die." I'm like, well, that's a really freaky vocal effect, but it works really well for this song. Um, I love the instrumentation. I love the build at the end, and oh my goodness, the end. I love how it ends on a major 7 chord. That's one of my favorite chords, and it just something about a major 7 chord is just like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. But finishing on that particular chord just it leaves you almost wanting, but yet feeling complete at the same time. If that makes any sense. But yeah, the knife is epic. Definitely my favorite Genesis song that we've covered up to this point. It is amazing. So now we're going to get to our ranking of the songs. I know there's only 6, so top 5 and an honorable mention, I guess.
I'll just rank the 6 because there's only 6 songs. But for me, in last, it's more of a dishonorable mention, and that's Stagnation. Number 5 is Dusk. Number 4, White Mountain. Number 3, Visions of Angels. Number 2, Looking for Someone. And number 1, The Knife.
Okay, for me, it's going to be number 6 is Dusk. Number 5 is Visions of Angels. Number 4, Stagnation. Number 3, Looking for Someone. Number 2, White Mountain. And number 1, The Knife. And so now, what would you give this album on a scale of 1 to 10?
All right. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Yeah, there were probably there's one dud on this album, and the 2 ballad songs back to back dragged it down a little bit. I think if they were on the same quality as the other songs, I might have given this a 9 out of 10 maybe. But still, a big step up from their debut album. I'm really starting to see why people love the Peter Gabriel era of Genesis on this album. I'm really excited to get to the era or excited to get to the next album when Phil Collins joins them. I'm sure that'll be even better than this album.
The next album, oh my goodness, it's even better than this. The next
Yeah.
album is like another huge step up in quality.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with Steve Hackett's guitar playing and Phil Collins' drumming.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that. I thought this is a good album as a whole. What helps is you have an amazing opener and an amazing closer that really bookends the album very well. Snagged a little bit in the second half, but the open Looking for Someone and The Knife is the main reason why I gave it an 8 out of 10, and Visions of Angels as well.
I'm going to give it an 8.75, very close to a 9. I just feel like there are better Genesis albums up ahead, and so if I give this a 9, then like it's going to be it's a very good album. It's it's not quite there. And I think the reason why is that Phil Collins and Steve Hackett aren't in the band yet, and they're really just what brought the band over the edge to being amazing. So that's where I'm going to give it as an 8.75. And that will conclude this particular episode of the Genesis series. We are going to be back next time with Nursery Crime when Phil and Steve join the band, and I'm super excited about that one because it's epic. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time. Remember that music is art and art is expression.
Bye-bye.